Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Chalmley. This is another Worcestershire church. This is the Church of St Peter and St Paul, Eastham, not to be confused, of course, with West Ham, which is in London, Greater London. This is a 12th century church that displays many original features. It's quite a tall building. It's a building that is built very largely of tufa, a building material that you'll have seen, God willing, in the last couple of videos. It's a material that's found locally. It's basically a type of limestone that's formed by water that is very hard water bubbling up through moss, and it creates this rather porous stone that's quite soft to cut, but when it's exposed to air just dries and becomes very hard. It's quite a white coloured stone, and so it's a very high status building material, and so the fact the church is built out of it is another sign of the status of the building. So we'll have a look around and see various features of this high status Norman church. So where do we start? As usual, we start at the back, and you can see here this chancel arch. Now this is a renewed chancel arch, but it does reflect something of what would have been there in the 12th century. There would have been some kind of arch. You can see at the other side there's a window. These things hang from the ceiling, by the way, are heaters, but there's what looks like a window. That would have been the entry to the rood loft in the Middle Ages when a rood loft was built. The font is Norman. You see it has what's called that rope type moulding around it, and there is a Norman window. All the beautiful tufa building material. The tower is later. The tower is Georgian and is made of brick, as we'll see when we go outside. War memorials we have here. 1919, of course, which is the, as I noted before, that 1919 is when the treaty is signed, and so it's when the war officially ends, and we have the list there of 11 men killed on active service. And 1939-45 on the one side we've got Roland William Norman, Worcestershire Regiment, gave his life active service in 1944. Another, the other we have the two Brettle boys, William Anthony Macduff, Brettle RAF, and David Graham Macduff, Brettle RAF. One killed in 43 and the other 45. The pulpit is Jacoby, a nice bit of Jacobean carving there. And here we have a memorial above it of to Leonard Robert Bradley, Nigerian Civil Service, lost at sea with all on board the SS Umgeni, November 1917. Directed by his widow, and you can see here that lovely porous tufa stone. The chancel, there is no chancel, there's no east window, and you can see that space that would have been occupied in the past by the Ten Commandments is now occupied by an arrangement with lights in it. We have the priest's stall here with the priest's door. That is 12th century, and you can see again tufa, lots of lovely tufa there. Above there is this memorial, which is unreadable at the moment, sadly, but looks to be late 17th, maybe early 18th century. Here we have St Peter, and therefore on the other side we know we have a restoration of St Peter. This is a low side window. We're not quite sure what they were for, but the current thinking is that at the Mass they would ring a bell out of it. It's kind of a early version of the Sanctus bell, or Sanctus bell. We didn't have a Sanctus bell cot. We have here memorials to former rectors, Reverend Edward Whitehead Beattie, youngest son of Christopher and Mary Whitehead, formerly fellow of Corpus Christi College, Oxford, succeeded his father rector of these parishes, was a magistrate for the same counties, died June the 4th, 1827, because his father preceded him. It's not uncommon, and there we have memorial to Josiah Shelton, who died in 1746. The organ. The organ is a very nice example of the work of the Positive Organ Company, the Positive Organ Company of London. They specialised in making little organs for country churches, and you can find them all over the place, all manner of counties. This is a relatively unaltered one. You can see it's got foot pedals to drive it. I suspect there's an electric drive in there at the back now, but let's have a look. Is there an electric? There should be an electric drive. There normally is in these cases. Yeah, yes, there's a box that's an electric drive. So yeah, you can see all the cables and things. And that's a positive organ. They're beautiful instruments. So they're a bit wheezy, but again, it's a proper little pipe organ. The idea of the positive organ is that your little church or chapel can have an actual pipe organ, because these things are simple, they're small, and they're compact, and they're real pipe organs. The reredos here is Jacobean panelling, probably comes from the big house, the court next door. We are here, of course, very much in cider country. Drove through cider orchards and hop gardens to get here. Here we have Mary, wife of the Reverend Thomas Gwynn, daughter of the late Reverend William Whitcomb, rector of Eastham and Stockton. The so-called Stockton on Teme, been there in the past. The two parishes have regularly shared clergy, of course they do today. But you can see this is Jacobean panelling taken out of the big house, so there's nothing ecclesiastical about it. These figures aren't biblical figures, they're just figures. This would have been someone's overmantel, I expect. Very nice, and it's very good that they put it here. Nice dried flower arrangement with lights in it. Interesting idea. And there's some more panelling out of the big house here. And you can see here we've got a lovely piscina. Look at that. That bowl that extends out, and that nice trefoil drain and a little shelf above. It's a lovely building here. And the Teme Valley churches are generally very, very pretty, because the Teme Valley is very, very pretty. And here we have Edward Soley of Alderton Gent, who died in 1690. It's a very 1690 memorial, that one. So that is the inside here in the beautiful St. Peter and St. Paul, Eastham, in the Teme Valley, indeed very near the River Teme itself. You can see there's the commandments, which would have been on the east wall where the flower arrangement with lights now is. So that's the inside. Let's go out and have a look at the outside, which is every bit as gorgeous. And here we are outside at Eastham. See again this beautiful Norman building. Got this pilaster on the outside here. It's not quite as posh as Astley, but it's getting on that way. And it does have this rather nice elevation, you see, with the blank arcading above the door. Another high status Norman feature, almost like these tall buildings. Most of the oldest churches in England are 12th century. There are a scattering of Anglo-Saxon ones, but the Anglo-Saxons did a lot of building in wood, which of course has tended not to survive because it's tended to be replaced later on by something in stone. This is a good example of a Norman church. Have a look around the outside and we'll point out the one obvious non-Norman feature, but you'll know that, you'll spot that. So here's the south side, which obviously is the main entrance side, as you can see. The building is made of tufa with detailing in stone. You couldn't, obviously, that eastward window is 14th century and the other one is 19th century. They replace much smaller Norman windows of the type that we'll see elsewhere. In fact, we can see one later Norman one in the chancel. That pile, that rockery, is the remains of the churchyard cross. Again, this is the one non-Norman, but obviously non-Norman bit. This is the brick tower, which is late 18th or early 19th century. I can't remember which at the moment. Electricity pylon, because they need to put them somewhere, and down in the valley is the best place to put them, because that is the Teme Valley there. Just down there is a bridge that takes you across the Teme Valley and into a little bit of Worcestershire, and then it's off to, well, you can go to Herefordshire or you can go to Shropshire. It's an area where the three counties meet. Here we have the north side. You can see there above the door, that is a Norman window. The other window is fake Norman. But the actual Norman windows, they were tiny, as we've seen before, and they're tiny because they need to be tiny because the Normans don't have glass. So you have wooden shutters, and you want the windows to be open to let in as much light as possible and as little any little rain or snow or birds as possible as well. Organ chamber, tufa. That's a vestry really. It's I've got a little positive organ in there. And this building is made very largely of tufa. It's we've seen some buildings where it's just used for dressings, but here this is tufa. We've got loads of tufa. Let us build a church out of tufa. Again, there's no east window, and oddly enough, the window up there is not centred. Very odd. It's a dog memorial here. But it's a very, very lovely example of a Norman church. Still in use, of course. But that is St Peter and St Paul, Eastham, in Worcestershire. And that's how you pronounce it, by the way. So if you watch these videos, you now, and you're American, you didn't know before, you now know how to pronounce Worcestershire sauce. And so there you have it, St Peter and St Paul, Eastham, one of the beautiful churches in the beautiful Teme Valley. As you've seen, it's well worth visiting, so if you're ever in the Teme Valley area, well, the whole Teme Valley is worth visiting, so if you ever anywhere near the Teme Valley, come and have a look, and you'll find so much more than just these little churches. So little villages, little towns, the ruins of Whitley Court, and so much more. So thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.